Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today.
So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
All right, we're going to dive in. Boy, you are making the rounds, Will. I see you on every video we're producing now.
That's right.
At yadayad.com.
Yep.
I said that that Shannon and Matt are darn near cheating when they have you to come in and fill in on the next witness. That's like having the A team.
Well, thank you. It's great being with those guys. I told them they have a great show, and I think it's a great service that they're providing, introducing everybody and learning their stories. I think that's really, I think that's important for us to have that level of knowledge of each other, our backstories, and so we had a great time. It's just so easy with those two. I was saying to Kevin, they have complementary personalities, Shannon and Matt, and so I encourage everybody to get over there and book a slot, and it's just like sitting down and talking with your pals.
Yes, I think they should all. Everyone should have the chance to be part of that show. I figured one of these days they'd ring me up and say, "You want to share yours?"
Share a story.
But we're all game for that show, and the two of them are really good together. So I agree with you, and I understand we're getting close to being able to post these in a way that they come up live on our website. We had some degradation of our performance based upon Facebook's major hiccup a couple of days ago. But, the good news is that has been resolved. Rich was able to identify that it is indeed me. I'm not an unauthorized version of me. I am the real me, better or worse. And so they brought us back up, and that's reassuring. We may go back to Facebook for posting this show. We may not. We'll see how it plays out. I'm happy to use X. It really doesn't matter between Facebook and X because the plan is to do major supplementation away from the feed on both. The reason for that is I'd like to go back just to pure news stories and to pick them up from any one of 8 or 10 different news sources and clip a picture and have a few words and then talk about it. I think that'd make a more interesting show. And the other problem is that on both of these social media platforms now, they put in your feed what you have commented on, even if what your comments are is "this is really stupid." I mean, do they teach this kind of stupid school, or did these people just naturally come by it? And they assume that you want more of that, and after a while it gets really old, and no, you don't want any more of it. Just as a quick update, for those who listened yesterday, that I did pass a kidney stone on Sunday. That's an excruciating experience. You do not. The onset of pain is like a straight up line. It doesn't go like on a gradual curve. You go from being having a fine day to, oh my God, what in the hell has happened? And while there are some wave nature to it, where it pulses on and off, not off, but up and down. When it's over, it's over. Except your body is gone through a war, and the body just doesn't wake up the next day or the following day and say, "Gee, that was great. I'm glad I survived that. Now here we go on something else," because it is. It's really quite an experience to
and like workouts, the not the day after, but the second day is typically the worst. If you really work out, that's
that's what your body does. And I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and for about 3 to 4 hours wrestled with the insights into why that happened, what the whole experience was about, and the coordination with the timing of the shutting down of Facebook based on being perceived as an imposter as opposed to me, and how it was brought back with an image of doing the show, and how that pertained to the fulfillment of PSOC. And it was a rather jolting experience, and it has taken me back to the drawing board, if you will. So where I had just thought I had edited and I had completed the with 725 page book, Coming Home 6. Looks like I'm going to have to add another chapter or two to it. We'll see if we can get it under 825 pages by the time we're done with that. But I've got to go from Ruth to what it really means by delivering the kinsman redeemer, and how we participated. And the message that I got last night was that Dode as the Passover lamb is only fully qualified to serve in that role if there is the anointing on his behalf of the Kaporeth, of the mercy seat of the Aaron Bereth, by a bull. And, we read in the first presentation of the Choder that it is a bull that is responsible for causing the cradle of the covenant to have children in it. And we read in Ruth that they deliver the kinsman redeemer. It appears that there is a correlation also between suffering, dying, body dying, and what happened on Passover for Dode to be able to serve in that role. So that was my experience in the middle of the night, and that's when Yahweh always finds he can get my attention, and we wrestled with it for a bit last night.
Yeah, I think the flow goes into it as well. I mean, the flow is naturally that way. From Ruth, you have to get to Emmanuel and explain that and flesh that out more. You
do. Yeah. And it's something that it just is so obvious that in Ruth, that's what it leads to. But there's a statement in Yeshaya about the woman that gives birth to a child that ties right into it. And then there's the statements on the Choder in the 14th chapter of the Proverbs that ties right into it. And then we have to go back into the 22nd and the 88th Mizmor for their depiction of what happened and who the players were, and because it's evident that it wasn't a hey son, nice to know you. It's going to be a rough day today. We'll catch you on the flip side. And that's not the way it went down.
Yeah, not a solo operation for sure.
No, it's not a solo operation. It's a family affair all the way to the end, and parents don't abandon their children under those circumstances. So it was a rough night dealing with that. All right, so the dumpster here is had his 4th of July celebration speech, 11 o'clock at night. He took a good nap instead of watching the fireworks, so I guess that worked out for him. Had a big flood while he was preparing to do this, which delayed him to 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, there were probably 15,000 people in attendance still around. That was 1/10 of what he claimed. And he had just come in from Mount Rushmore because he wanted to emphasize that his mug should be there as opposed to any of the others. And his staff did a fine job of creating animations, AI animations with his mug on Mount Rushmore. And so he comes into Washington, and you'd think, all right, so it's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, that he'd have a very pro-America unifying speech. But it was just typical Trump POS. It was nothing but vitriol and campaign rhetoric and the like. And he is now on this same page as Elon Musk, which is that if you're a communist, if you're a Marxist, if you're a progressive, then you hate America, you're trying to destroy America, and you should be, according to Trump, exterminated.
Mm.
Now, exterminated is a pretty rough term. Maybe he doesn't know the meaning of the word, but that is a criminal offense. It's impeachable for him to have said so. And while I'm opposed to all collectivized government systems and much prefer free enterprise to Marxism, socialism, or communism, the Declaration of Independence of America does not stipulate the economic mandate that would govern the colonies and now the states. Not mentioned. And the right to dissent is clearly stated within the Constitution. So saying that it's what you say and not what anybody else says is un-American. It's a direct attack on the U.S. Constitution. But mostly what I want to talk about here is the nature of propaganda. We mentioned it yesterday, but I don't think many people understand it. I just think that propaganda is political puffery where one side degrades the other and speaks of their own stuff as if it doesn't poop. But there's a lot more to propaganda than that. It's a fairly simple system. It works with almost everyone. And it begins by repetition. And so Trump is he is the ultimate repeater. And there isn't any lie that he has told that he hasn't run through the mill many times. Most recently, that the U.S. won the war in Iran, and the opposite of true. That Iran wants to negotiate with the United States and end the war, when the opposite is true. That America is the hottest country in the world and is more respected than any time in its history, which is not true. That he's one of the greatest presidents in the history of this country, which is not true. That the economy is doing well, which is not true. And so he just constantly repeats the same lies over and over again. And repetition of a lie is essential to propaganda.
Yeah.
The more people hear the lie, the more prone they are to believe it. A great example would be that Jesus is God. You know, in the Christian New Testament, which is, by the way, rubbish, there's no such claim made. The first time there was a Jesus was the 17th century, when the J was invented, 1629. That's when Jesus came into being. The first time that Mr. Christ was called a god was the Nicene Council. And at the time, a majority of Twistians were with Arian. And Arian's conclusion was that if you read the text, he never claims to be a god, and God's not a man, and men cannot kill God. So why don't we just go to what the text says and not make ourselves look stupid here that we're calling God a man and that saying that men can still God, because that's really, really stupid. Let's not do that. And yet Eusebius and others who wanted to make a Dionysian figure out of their Christos were insistent the other way, and they imposed a verdict on the Nicene Council, and that for the first time in the mid-4th century is this myth of Jesus became a god. And it's been repeated so many times that people just believe it's true. And of course, he never existed, and God most certainly isn't a man. But it's the repetition of a lie that causes people to believe it. People believe, for example, that Muhammad was a prophet. But they never issued a single prophecy he got right. And I know what he said and what he did better than any person alive, probably any person since Muhammad, and probably better than actually Muhammad, because he was pretty stupid and he was essentially illiterate. And he couldn't remember what he said one day to the next. And I can tell you that the Quran is quite clear in this matter that Muhammad was not a prophet. And yet it's been repeated so many times that you always hear the Prophet Muhammad when he was not a prophet. It's just the repetition that causes the propaganda to work. One of the worst today would be Palestine and Palestinians. There's no such thing as Palestine, never has been, and there is no such thing as a Palestinian. Never has been. There is no ethnic group or national entity as Palestine or Palestinian. It's a lie that was originally promoted by Hadrian as an ethnic slur during his total destruction of Yehuda and murderous campaign against Yehudim in 133 CE. And it was just given in spite because he was an a-hole. And everyone forgot it except the Brits, who are anti-Semites of the worst nature, and they maintained the lie. Pretty shameful of them, since they were so subjugated by Rome and so harassed by Rome that they would pick up a lie of Rome. But anti-Semitism is a powerful force. And that this name wasn't really used outside of scholastic sources where people know a lot of things but don't understand anything until the Brits dusted it off. And when they came to control the Middle East, because they had bribed various factions to oppose the Ottoman Turks using proxies to fight their battles back at a time that Britain actually had some influence in the world. And so they came to control the area, and they were belligerent against what we call today Jews. They really weren't Jews until the 17th century. They're Yehudim and Israelites. And in that process, they created a legacy that the KGB and the Muslim Brotherhood, in a meeting in Cairo, capitalized upon, and one day decided they would rename every Muslim in Israel a Palestinian. One day you were just a Arab Muslim or Egyptian Muslim, Jordanian Muslim. Next day you were Palestinian by naming convention. There you go. That's who you are. And oh, by the way, you hate Jews. And so they created the Palestinian Liberation Organization to obliterate Jews and to confiscate Israel and to rename it, just like Hadrian had done. And it's a lie so often repeated that it's believed. So it's the nature of propaganda. It's how it works. The second thing is that if you're going to be a good propagandist, you never allow those who are opposed to your propaganda, or those who are just educated and rational, to have a long enough time to demonstrate that your lies from yesterday are invalid. And the way you do that is you double down on new lies every day. That every day is ruled by chaos. You're going to throw more and more lies out until people forget the lies of yesterday and the day before that and the day before that, and they just become disoriented, and they become inept in terms of being able to hold you accountable. You know, when
it becomes
Trump,
impossible to sort it out.
Sworn in, he was talking about resorts in Gaza and moving these Fakistinians into the Sinai and into Jordan, was promising he was going to be able to do that. And then he told Hamas, you're going to do this, that, and the other thing, and lay down your weapons, or there's going to be all hell to bear. And none of it happened. And so it's every day there's a new slate of lies.
Yeah, you can't keep up with it.
Yeah, you can't keep up
after
with it.
a while.
And nobody holds them accountable for the prior lies, because there's a new one, and everybody is all over the new one. And oftentimes they get distracted by things that are just meaningless. I mean, the fact that he paid some donors without having any bids on the reflecting pool, and they were incompetent and didn't know what they were doing and made a mess of things. He became a favorite to embarrass him, but it's so inconsequential compared to the lies, for example, on Iran or in Ukraine, where between the two, millions of people have died.
For the war crimes, I mean, blowing up boats in the Caribbean, blowing up, schools in Iran.
Right. So it's chaos. He was actually quoted twice yesterday. Watching newsreels of some 20 million people will show their respects to the Ayatollah and others in his council as the world witnesses the largest funeral procession in history. And his comment was, I had no idea they had any respect for him. I didn't think they liked him, is what he said. I didn't think they liked him.
Yeah.
I mean,
he said something honest.
Make that kind of a comment. I mean, it's just, so you're saying that you thought it was okay for you to go murder him, which is what you did. You committed an act of murder. You went and murdered him. You even had murdered his granddaughter. You murdered his daughter-in-law. You disfigured his son, so he can't even show himself. You did these things, and you didn't know. So having a new point of chaos every day is part of propaganda, and Trump is exceedingly good at that.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's just elevated this to an art form, and I don't know if it's all propaganda. A lot of it is just confabulation. You know, when you think of propaganda, you think of something very organized, an orchestrated narrative that you keep pounding, whether it's, Jesus is Lord, Muhammad's a prophet. You have to pound that. This guy's literally all over the map. I've never seen anything like it. I know you feel that you have your arms around and can understand what's going on in Iran, but between the propaganda coming out of Iran and the propaganda coming out of this White House, I'm having a very hard time understanding what the hell is really going on over there. And I'm glad to hear you because you can help sort it out. But the propaganda is at a level where nothing is truthful. I mean, and even in society, people talk in propaganda. They talk in slogans and memes that were designed to get them to think a certain way. And it's I find it very frustrating, and I'm sure a lot of Covenant members do, that in this day and age, you just can't get a straight answer or straight talk.
No. It's the reason why I wanted to lead this program with propaganda. And your assessment is the normalized view of propaganda, that propaganda is systematic, it's planned, and that Trump is incapable of being systematic or planning. That's largely true. He can't. But it doesn't change that he is still engaged in propaganda, a textbook propaganda. And Trump does have his themes. Economy great. I'm most powerful person in the world. America is the most favored nation in the world. Our military is the best in the world. We can do no wrong. We're the hottest country on earth. Everybody listens to us. He has the same. Anybody that opposes me is scum and deserves death. It has a routine. Mm-hmm. It's a disgusting routine, but he has a routine. And so he is resolutely propagandist. Now, just because he's a confabulator and that there is no correlation between what he believes and says and reality doesn't change the fact that it is propaganda. Propaganda, there's only a loose enough association with propaganda and truth to make the lie appear credible amongst unthinking individuals. Like America won the war, like the Strait of Hormuz is open, like we're not giving Iran any money when all evidence is to the contrary, that Russia was the aggressor in a war, when the proof is overwhelming, undeniable, and ubiquitous that America started the war, and then Ukraine took it from there, and Russia was just simply responsive. And so it is important for us to talk about this because there are, 4 basic elements to effective propaganda, and every religion on earth today runs on it. Every political party runs on it. In politics, they will tell you that they really don't give a hoot about what reality is. What they care about is perceptions.
Correct.
And so the whole concept is to create perceptions, and you use propaganda to do that. There is virtually nothing that comes out of MAGA that is accurate. But likewise, there's virtually nothing that comes out of the Marxists that is accurate either. So the first 2 aspects, and we'll get into Iran here in a moment. The first 2 aspects of propaganda are constant repetition. And repetition is what causes those things which are untrue to be accepted as true by the majority. It is the single most important element of it. The second most important element is to have chaos, so that every day you've augmented your stable of lies with a new deception, so that you keep those who would refute you off balance. And that if they're refuting the lie from yesterday, you've distracted them and the audience by a new lie today.
You're a moving target, essentially.
Yes.
So
it's not just a moving target; it's a chaotic target. It's too many targets. It's like the effective missiles today. They don't come in with 1 warhead; they come in with 20 warheads and 200 false warheads. It becomes just too many targets, and people and the systems are overwhelmed. They can't deal with them. And same thing about people. And you have a tendency to go to one of your weaker arguments and focus where you shouldn't, as opposed to drive one all the way home. Like when he says, "I think they ought to be eradicated," that's a crime. Can't say that. When you say I'm going to blow up bridges and dams and that sort of thing in a foreign country, that's a war crime. You can't say that. Just
or you're going to make that country glow.
Right. All right. So the next is that you never promote anything that is propagandist using evidence and reason. You're never appeal to the mind. You always appeal to emotion. And so you don't have thinking individuals that are religious or political. The overtly religious and the overtly political are motivated by opinions and slogans and mindless drivel. And they just parrot the themes of whatever it is they identify with. There is nothing of substance behind it. If you were to ask a Marxist, where is Palestine? What's the history of the Palestinian people? When was the last king or leader of the Palestinians? What's the currency of the Palestinian people? Do the Palestinian people have a national religion? How did they come to this homeland, and how did they come to lose this homeland? And how are they treated everywhere else in the world that so-called Palestinians are recognized? And how's that different from the way they're treated in the country you think is colonialization? And what if the actual truth is that the very thing that you're rooting for has been the most colonial and oppressive and apartheid imposing and genocidal in human history? Can you deal with any of that? And the answer is no, they can't. So there's never any correlation between these things in reality.
Yeah.
And that's an effective part of propaganda, because what they have done is isolate it from an intelligent retort.
Yeah. And also it has to be simplistic, the message, because you're dealing with unthinking people. So this is why I say these people speak in memes and things that are easy to understand. They're very slogan-ish.
No, you're close, but then you failed. No, understand. The reason they speak in memes and the reason they have very short attention spans is it's an emotional appeal.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not a thoughtful appeal. To present a thoughtful appeal, you have books like mine.
That's
They're 650, 700, 825 pages, and they're packed with evidence, validating the conclusions. That's an intellectual appeal. An emotional appeal is you throw out a slogan, a meme.
Right.
So it's always appeal to emotion. And the word you used, understand, and there's no understanding in this. It's parenting of opinions and emotion. The fourth element is to identify the lies with symbols that are enduring and that are endearing to a community. He'll stand before the flag. He'll have a flag on his lapel. He will have as a backdrop the Washington Monument. The propagandist drapes themselves in symbols that appeal to their audience, that cause their audience to associate the lies with something that they hold dear. A Christian cross, as tragic as that is, the crescent moon among Muslims, the horrible symbol of the six-pointed star and the harassment the Jews endured under it, but as a unifying feel-good symbol for Jews that don't know any better. And so it is those symbols that they wrap themselves around. Those are the four elements of propaganda. And today it is not just prevalent, it's ubiquitous. Now, you asked about Iran. The wars today are fought on several battlefields. The most important battlefield is actually not the kinetic battlefield where the missiles and drones and bombs are falling and the interceptors and radars are running. That's not actually the most important war. The most important war today is the war of public opinion. It's the war that I begged Israel to fight intelligently, and they lost by forfeit.
That's right.
It's the war that America cannot win and Israel cannot win in Iran because there's nothing to support their argument. And it's a war that the Iranians have played brilliantly. Now, the interesting thing is that the Iranians don't actually have to use propaganda to prevail in the war of public opinion because Israel and the United States have been so disgusting. They can just show what happened. You parade the bodies of those 8, 10, 12 people that were murdered, literally murdered by the United States with Israeli intelligence, and have the crowd all lathered up. We want Trump's head in revenge. We cannot, as people, take this insult without having his head in revenge. And that is what they're saying. That is actually not propaganda. This is just using reality effectively. And the Iranians have also done something else that has been very effective, and that is that Arachi, who's the foreign minister, and the other spokespeople that they have are very well educated. They're articulate. They're polished in their public persona. And they are highly responsive as opposed to reactionary or even belligerent. And they lay it all out and said, we were attacked. We haven't attacked anybody. This is what happened. And this is the pace of events. And they're so good at it. Again, they have won the war of public opinion, and they actually didn't need to use propaganda. The propagandists in this war have been Israel and the United States. Israel and the United States have lied about everything.
Yeah, that's for sure.
This funeral, you could call it propaganda, but it is exactly as any nation should do. You had your leaders murdered, cold blood. The Iranians were engaged in negotiations with the United States. They had made a huge concession on uranium-235. And while they were negotiating, the United States and Israel attacked them. And the first part of that attack was to murder their leadership on this stupid belief that a decapitation, which is typically Islamic, but the United States did what Muslims are famous for doing. A decapitation strike would somehow cause people to rise up in opposition to the government when exactly it was certain to have exactly the opposite effect, and did.
That's true.
So they waited patiently to find the best time, and they will have 20 million people.
Wow.
And there are going to be very few of those that are going to think anything else but America's evil, Israel's evil, and Netanyahu and Donald Trump need to pay for having done this. And I would go so far as to say to both of you that if you're an American and your president did this to you, you're an Israeli and your prime minister did this to you, they lied to you about what they were going to achieve.
That's right.
They did it. They lied to you about what they were achieving, and they made your country exceedingly vulnerable. They destroyed your reputation in the world by committing all manner of war crimes.
Yep.
And you became murderous. You bombed little children. You committed all manner of inappropriate actions, and you crippled the world's economy. What should a nation do to the leadership that not only lies about such things, but blunders in such a way that is so caustic to both countries? And Israel and the United States, it's going to end up destroying both countries. Both leaders should be held accountable for what they did.
No question about it.
Yeah, lawfully you would vote them out or whatever. Legally at some point, is it treason? Is it, is it, hey,
look, I think it's treason. No,
you really screwed up. I mean,
no, it's I think what Netanyahu did the morning of October 7th, and then his failed strategy on all fronts thereafter, and his destruction and isolation of Israel between the destruction of Gaza and the two wars with Iran, it should not take another election. Mm-hmm. He should be held accountable for deceiving and defrauding and destroying the nation. And the same thing is true with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's tragic that we don't do those kinds of things and don't hold people accountable for gross misrepresentation. And this is not a plaything. It's not that he said, I don't like Lapid because he's a pretty boy and a Marxist, and I'm a conservative and tough guy. It'd say, okay, that's political rhetoric. No, twice he bombed another country.
Yeah.
Twice he invaded another country, and then he destroyed Gaza. I mean, these aren't simple things.
Yeah.
Mm.
It wasn't political. I made a mistake. No, he destroyed his country.
Yeah.
And should be accountable for having destroyed his country. Israel has been checkmated. There are no moves left for Israel. This ongoing existence of a Jewish state, it's over. Israel, over the next 7 years, is going to dissolve into essentially a shell of what it once was. There is no move left for Israel. It's literally over. It's checkmate. And so for a leader to have checkmated his nation, it's catastrophic.
Unnecessarily, mind you.
Right.
He didn't have to go down this road. There were other legitimate options for him. And he pushed forward despite the fact that it just got worse by the day. He alienated this world day by day with the Gaza bombings, and then it was Iran, and now it's Lebanon. And and Israel is completely unaware of the situation they're in. And they don't feel this way. You know, they know that they have a lot of
Israelis have been
problems, but they're not blaming.
lied to by the left, by the right, and by the religious so long. I don't think there's anybody in Israel that's actually able to think their way out of the mess that, well, there is no thinking your way out of this mess. It's checkmate now. It's over. So it doesn't matter how they rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic that is
That's right.
Israel, or what song the orchestra plays. The next 7 years are going to be horrific. And they put themselves in this terrible fix. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about propaganda and what it is, and how Donald Dumpster uses it, and how effective it is on MAGA, that they still go along with him. And it just is irritating on the rest of us.
Just out of curiosity, Yada, did you get your points on propaganda from Bernays' book? You know, the 4 different points and stuff.
Yeah.
There's some really
you know,
interesting things I didn't know about.
I remember I listened to about an hour long assessment of that book, talking about the 4 contributors to propaganda. And unfortunately, it was one of those things that Facebook wasn't willing to recognize what I was trying to take from the reel and post, because I wanted to be able to listen to those 4 points and then talk about them, because I thought it was a very articulate presentation of them. I think I've got a reasonable summation of them from what I heard. But since we're seeing it so prolifically, and Islam, and the lie of Palestine, and the lie of Jesus being a god, of Trump being an honorable leader, and Netanyahu having been an honorable leader of Israel, I just thought I'd share the elements of it. If it's the same source that I'm thinking of, then it was actually written because the author view, in a very Machiavellian way, that propaganda was required for democracy, that you can't have a democracy without propaganda. And so it was you must use this as an art form. And I would tell you that democracy is such a failed governing system, that it's a system that's always going to promote the redistribution of wealth, so that you end up punishing and robbing productive people, and you're giving it to the unproductive. And that's how the system will play out. And because you don't have anybody that's voting, or you have tiny fraction of those who are voting that know the topics that they're voting on. They don't know economics. They don't know the international politics. They don't know history. They don't know their own nation's history, much less other nations. They don't know the Constitution. And so just voting, when you have most people voting that couldn't answer any intelligent question regarding the issues that are at hand, is not a productive system. Yeah. And when the majority is paying no tax, and is making no contribution, and is receiving entitlements, that system is certain to do what America has done, to create $40 trillion worth of debt. Yeah. And so it's a horrible system that has no chance of success. And the thing that we propagandize against, which is an oligarchy, is the only form of democracy that actually has any chance of success, is an oligarchy, because it's people that have skin in the game that are allowed to decide how what they are contributing is used, where in a democracy, it's any idiot can vote, and they do. And they typically vote for entitlements. And so it's legalized Robin Hood. That does not work. It never has worked. It will not work. This is not a virtue to be promoting. But you know, the opposite of it, that in the last 75 years, 100 years, has been Marxism, and it's worse. And then you have this thing called democratic socialism, which is like, I'm a little bit pregnant.
Right.
Yeah. So we're really in a mess. Would you want to? Do you have anything that you think I missed from the assessment of this Machiavellian approach to propaganda is necessary for democracy, because I will tell you that the American democracy is very much like the Wizard of Oz, where people think that they are supporting a wizard, and that that wizard has their best interests. That wizard is nothing but a wee little guy with lots of levers and horns and noise and flames, and the government of America doesn't change. It is literally run by the same gaggle of goons that want nothing but control, money, and they will sacrifice anything for it. The people that are bribed by Ukraine, for example, to continue to promote that war, it's despicable.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of your point 3 on emotional appeal. That it really, to me, goes to the heart of the matter of Yashaya talking about the lack of neshama and lack of neshama use. That emotional appeal really, really hits home for those that don't have a functioning or do not exercise a neshama, because it's all about the feels in that nature. It's very much like the feels that Israel had whenever they wanted a king. We had a system that was working. There was no system that was nothing broken about the Shabbat system, right? But they decided, because of the way they felt, that they wanted a king. And yet Yahweh tells them through Shamuel, these are the things that are going to happen to you. These are the facts.
The 12 tragedies of having a government over you like this. And he laid it all on the line. There's slavery and wars and taxation, and that the king will bribe a cadre of fellows around him, and through that bribery, they will control all others. And he went through the whole thing that governance is going to bring about. Then he was right, but the reality is that with the overtly religious person, a person who defines their life by their religion, an overtly political person, I'm a MAGA, I'm a Marxist, I'm a progressive, that kind of thing, the person that would define themselves that way. By the way, I'm none of those things, but thank you. You're just using it as an expression. Or the person who is a conspiratorialist, or even an overt patriot who is, waves the flag and values the military. You are never going to reason with such an individual. There is no amount of evidence that you can bring, no source, even the most unassailable, that you can bear, that is going to change their minds. They have put themselves in a situation where they're absolutely impervious to evidence and reason. And it's 100% of the time, and 100% of those individuals, 100% of the time. You will never, ever encounter an overtly political, religious, conspiratorial, or patriotic individual who will even consider evidence and reason. So that is a completely dysfunctional nesama, conscience.
Yeah. And much of this growth has been stunted in schools. I touched upon this with the boys the other day, so many times in, I lost my thought there. I'm sorry.
They don't, the school system has really hurt this process where we have now Generation Z, and it's a huge magnitude beneath the prior generation, which was already crippled intellectually. They don't have anywhere close to the same IQ. They don't have the same literacy rates. They don't have the same ability to focus. More than 5 words is about all they can process at a time. They have forfeited the ability to reason. It is a tragic loss of a generation of people who have performed worse than the generation before them. And the generation before them was really sad, is what we've done. We've destroyed a entire generation's ability to think. And to a large degree, we've done it electronically. Video games, social media, these kinds of things have had a horrible effect. Dark web, just the proliferation of information on the internet. But social media has played a huge role. And now we're doubling down with the social media because social media is completely controlled now by AI. And you talk about situations where you can't tell who's telling the truth and if there any truth available anymore. AI is completely blurring that to the point where it's almost impossible for the average person to know when they're being lied to.
Mhm. Yeah. It's the lack of my point was it's the lack of critical thinking skills, and our IQs are dumbed down. But you don't have to have a high IQ to be a thinker. Thinking is a process, and you can be taught how to do that. And the last thing, the regime would want is for people to think on their own. So everything's given to people. There's a sense of entitlement, and they're told what to believe, and they're glad to believe it, and there's no pushback. And so
we
they're
don't
really ripe
teach
for
we don't teach
propaganda.
rhetoric anymore,
No.
and we don't teach debate. There are rational fallacies, and people don't know them.
Mhm.
And so the idiots like the dumpster here commits all manner of them. Paul did in writing the New Testament. Muhammad did in his Quran. It's filled with rational fallacies and contradictions. People don't know how to process them.
No.
And if you don't know how to process information, then you can be destroyed either one of many ways. And one is you give somebody too much information and they don't know how to be discerning. They don't have a filter. Then you've destroyed them.
Mhm.
And if you give them bad information, then you will have destroyed them because they won't recognize it. And if you dissuade them from exercising good judgment, if you make being judgmental a bad
Sin,
thing as opposed to the essence of rational thought, then you have destroyed them, because even if they had the ability to filter out good information from bad, they still can't process it. And then if you layer on top of that the propaganda of the lies, whether they be Islamic or Marxist or MAGA or conspiratorial, you've laid the ground with a great onslaught of lies, and you don't have one person in 100,000 that can think their way through them.
Or even start to turn off, because with so many lies, you can look and say, oh well, okay, that one's a lie, and then that one's a lie, and that one's, and then you turn off. You're like, well, everybody's lying about everything, so what's the point? You just overwhelm and you just stop.
Yeah, here in Israel, for example, which is a target audience, we are interested in preserving a remnant of Israel to re-enter the garden. And you can write the 38 books that I have behind me. I have all manner of evidence from the most unassailable source, all keyed to the oldest extant manuscripts, with all manner of evidence to support the claims. And you can use every venue of social media to reach them, and they will just tune you out.
Mm-hmm. And another point of that, with the 38 books, there's something I've seen even within the Covenant family, that, hey, I wasn't a Christian, so I don't need to read, Twistanity, or hey, I already know that the Islam's bad. Why would I read, goddamn religion? And no, that doesn't work at all.
No, not
You
at all.
need to-
Yahweh started me with in opposition to Islam. That's how we began.
Mhm.
And until you have an understanding of Islam and how the Quran came to be and how rabbis contributed to it and how Muhammad promoted it as a criminal enterprise, and how Hasatan, the adversary, works within religion. Until you understand those things, you're really not in a position to understand the world as we know it. And God is insistent that we disassociate from and then ultimately speak out against religions and political schemes that are in conspiracies that are hostile to his people. And if you're not knowledgeable about Islam and Christianity, and Rabbinic Judaism, you're not in a position to defend God's people, which means you're really not in a position to be an effective covenant member. So, yeah, I would agree that if you haven't read it because you say, I don't need that, then you're not in a position to defend Israel. And we ought to be doing that.
It also helps the credibility issue, because if you can start and say, yeah, I agree with what he's saying, systematically destroying Christianity, systematically destroying goddamn religion, once you've built the credibility with those things, then when someone says, oh, I'm the Nakri, the Adam of Parah, that it's like, okay, you've established credibility.
And no one in
with
human
A and
history
B.
has done these things.
Yes.
So if God makes a claim about you and you validate that claim by demonstrating that you have done something no one in all of human history has done. No one in all of human history has written a series of books that destroy Islam by only citing Islamic sources, and only the earliest Islamic sources, their scriptural sources, and validating those and reordering the Quran chronologically, translating it, providing 6 translations of it, and setting it into the context of Muhammad's life. No one's ever done that. Ever.
Publicly, and survived it.
Yes. And done 10,000 radio shows on it under my own name. No one has ever approached that in all of human history. No one has ever gone to the extent that they completely repudiate the myth of Jesus. There are sites that Jesus words only. No, there was no Jesus. To prove that there was no Jesus, to prove that the text of the Christian New Testament is rubbish, to absolutely prove that Paul lied about everything, and to set his words against the words of the actual prophets that they claim are the basis of their religion. No one has ever done that. There's 5 books on Twistianity completely disproving it. That there's nothing left. No human being on the planet can read those 5 books and remain a Christian, just as no person can read the 5 books on Islam and remain a Muslim. And by the time you're done, you will know the religion based better than 99.999% of the practitioners, the believers of that religion. And then to have done something no one has ever done before, which is to disprove a foundational text of Judaism, which is Ezekiel, and to show that it wasn't inspired by God, it was inspired by Satan, and prove it.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, write another 25 books translating the Dead Sea Scrolls and stripping every word of the diacritical rabbinical markings and presented it in an amplified format along with the terms that serve as the basis for those translations so that you can validate them yourselves. No one has ever done that. Or to have 10 to 20,000 profound insights that were previously unheralded. I mean, you put that together, that is quite a resume.
No. And Yada, you taught me.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you taught me this, that, the why is incredibly important. So on the one hand, you could say, okay, yeah, I know religion and, Islam and Christianity are wrong, but you have to know why. It's not enough to just say they're wrong. Okay, you're correct. Can you back it up and prove it? Until you have that kind of depth, you're never going to have the conviction of how wrong it really is. You're saying that if you don't understand the why, then you're just taking it on your word that it's wrong, and you may or may not be right.
And that's all you see on social media is it's right, it's wrong, and never any evidence for it. Just ridiculous claims with no basis. And having written, 4,200 pages proving that Islam is false, and another 3,800 pages proving that Christianity is false, and another 3,000 pages proving Judaism is false. It's an entirely different level of exposure. And when I excoriate the rabbis and the popes and the priests and the pastors and the imams, I know more about their religion than they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's essential. God is anti-religious, and he wants us to expose and condemn these religions so that his truth is not commingled in the midst of it. And it's something that has heretofore never been done before. And God picked someone to do it. And then he enabled him to do it. And we've done more than anyone has ever done before. And in this regard, there's nothing else like it. And every word of it, we expose and give you the opportunity to challenge. And we've never had an intelligent rebuttal. I mean, like the most recent is just so pathetic with the Mother Goddess cultlet. And every time they try to differentiate themselves and say, this is who we are, they step in deep doo-doo. And they end up impugning themselves with their own defense and their own. And when you properly translate what they're trying to claim, it actually impugns them. And that's been the case for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So it's all there. You can listen. You don't have to listen. We're not playing to win an audience. We're not in the same game as the Tucker Carlsons or the Candace Owens or the Nick Fuentes or the Joe Rogans or the Alex Jones. We just don't care. In fact, hardly play at all now in social media. We've made the effort to reach out to God's people, and they weren't listening. And so we're here to tell the truth and expose it to those who want to listen. And if you're of that ilk, then welcome. You're here. You can learn what we've come to know, or not. And it's the bar is set very low for our success. A couple of thousand individuals in the end that are part of the mortal remnant of Israel, and we will have exceeded all expectations. Because heretofore, there haven't even been 1/10 of that over 6,000 years. So we will have exceeded all possible expectations. And, if there are 80 covenant members that pass muster with Yahweh to the extent he says, yep, I want you to be part of my eternal family. I'm going to trust you with this empowerment. You're going to be a great help in working to educate that final remnant. And we'll go explore the universe together. There's 80 people. Then we will have increased the size of the covenant family probably tenfold. And we still have 2 harvests to go, plus the benefit of those who are part of that final remnant as they grow in understanding. So it's an exceedingly low bar, and I was not impressed with numbers, and actually doesn't want a lot of people to come to know him or benefit from him. His preference would be fewer is better than many, because his first comments when man became many is that I made a tremendous mistake here, and I regret that I have created Nesama man with a conscience, because collectively, when there's many of them, they're really, really obnoxious. Look at the Exodus.
Yeah.
One of the first stories after the Exodus is told in the book of Shaphat, of Judges. And it's hellacious. It's about a man and his Amma. I think he is a Lowy. And his Amma. And the community rapes her to death. Rapes her to death. And
Benjamites.
And God says, heretofore, this is because of the number of people participating and the extent to which they went. And then their response when the man, at this point, the body is meaningless. Her soul was what counted. And he quarters cuts into 12 pieces her body and distributes it around the whole country. Say, this is what you did. And God was on the side of the Lowy. And, this is one of the more despicable things that, in fact, up to this point, it's the single most despicable thing my people have done. And this was after having all manner of meltdowns during the Exodus. The perception of Jews and their relationship to God is so erroneous, so a
Say the least.
propagandist.
Correct.
I don't think there's anybody that God hates more than rabbis.
Yes. Well,
And
and
it's rabbis that created Christianity and Islam, so you get a triple whammy with them.
what we're doing now is laying the groundwork to 2030, right? We're laying the foundational pieces that are going to be available and needed for 2030, either through personnel, either through the website, right? And because we know Naomi doesn't go back to Yahweh, doesn't go back to Jerusalem without Ruth until
Correct.
there ain't nothing left for them there, right? They have
Right.
to. I mean, they've lost their husband,
Yeah,
son,
and
ain't
while
nothing for them.
Ruth-
Now it's time to shub.
Well, Ruth went from unbelievably obnoxious, in fact, reprehensible. Not Ruth, Naomi. Naomi went from reprehensible, she calls God evil, to benefiting from what Ruth and Boaz provided to her. The elders of Israel, they are absolute scoundrels. The elders that Boaz met with to redeem Ruth are absolute scum. They did not resolve their issues. And they are on record doing what rabbis do to this day. They call Ruth a prostitute, and they view Boaz as engaging in prostitution. And it is no different than the Benjamites raping the Amma and the book of Shaphat, Judges. And you take the woman and the man who is most responsible for delivering restitution and reconciliation for a wayward nation, and you disparage them as they did. It's unforgivable. It's catastrophic. And they're still at it today.
Yeah.
So it's a tough audience out there, and fortunately, God doesn't like them any more than we do, and so and He is. You'll notice that and I don't know if you've had the chance to read the concluding chapter of Ruth, where Boaz has to encounter the reprehensible nature of the elders of Israel, the sages who are now known as rabbis, and they use the example of Yahud, and of the 12 tribes. We're talking about Yahud himself, and he's committing an act of incest with a woman that he thinks is a prostitute. And they're using that to frame what Boaz has done with Ruth. It's tough to recover from that. And what you see is that Boaz, who clearly represents Yahweh, and I'll speak to that in just a moment, there is no encouragement from Yahweh to Boaz, who has been at this point very articulate. When Ruth says something, he responds and he adds to it and says, well, that's what this means, and that leads to this, and that is there, and this is what we're going to do, and this is going to be, magnificent. When they say that, he just restates, she's mine, not yours. I don't expect to ever hear from you again. Goodbye. He does not say, boy, that was really reprehensible. You ought to have thought that through. He doesn't try to change their mind.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about, is that, in fact, I would say that in terms of Yahweh's rhetoric throughout the Exodus, in each of those disgusting meltdowns by the children of Israel, God's not trying to change their mind. He's just saying, you're dead. You're gone. It's over.
Yeah, that's free will. Let me deal with the remnant. Let me deal with the ones that are left. Let me, see what the ones that I can work with. We're still possible. The ones that are dead, you're dead. I got nothing for you.
If you had a remnant of 2, you'd have done better than anybody else. And it's going to be a remnant of single-digit thousands, but still, it's going to be more than anybody else has achieved. And from God's point of view, that's good enough. And and our job It's pretty comprehensive with the 38 books up here and 30,000 pages, plus thousands of hours of audio programs. But it's all to reach 1,000 or so people. You choose to be one of them, great. I think it's too late to encourage you to be part of the Shabua harvest that's upcoming. Only 11 months. In 11 months, I don't think you can come up to speed to the point that you can demonstrate to Yahweh that you're worthy. I think it would be a worthy investment of your time to attempt that. And maybe if you stay with it, you'll be ready to go on Teruah. And it is far better to be gleaned on Teruah than it is to be part of that mortal remnant. Infinitely superior. So I would encourage doing it and joining us and learning what you can. But I think that we run out of time to bring people up to speed, to which point they can prove to God that they can be trusted. And this might even sound toxic to people's ears, that you need to prove to God that you can be trusted. But it's just because you don't understand what it is that he's offering.
Right.
This idea in Christianity, I won't be saved, John 3:16, and if you'll believe, you'll have eternal life. From who? Where? Why? Under what conditions? But I can give you a fast way to have eternal life. Promote Christianity, and you'll have eternal life in Sheol. Eternal life is not something you want to promote when you don't know where it is or the conditions under which it's going to be lived. What folks don't understand is that what God has done is he's put us in a protective enclosure. It's called the earth. I watched a series of programs last night on planets, and there just is no planet like this one anywhere. And it is a protective enclosure conducive to life. And he gave us not only life in this planet, but a nesama, so that we could think our way either to him or away from him. And then he communicated his instructions to us, which we can either heed or ignore. But what he is offering is to take us off of this planet. What he's offering is to replace these physical bodies that are so limiting with light and energy, so that our souls are enveloped in light and energy, so we can go off and explore the universe with him, so that we can spend time in his company. And he can trust us not to do something really stupid, because each dimension that we enter and then cross into the next, from 3D to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, each of those is an infinite increase in capability and opportunity. And by the time you're in 7 dimensions, you can take any aspect of this universe and you can think or talk it into any state that you can imagine. And the potential destructive influence under such circumstances requires great trust. And so if you can't demonstrate that you can be trusted here, God's certainly not going to empower you to that degree and trust you with 7 dimensions, a 7-dimensional increase in who you are, take you out of the limitations of these physical bodies and make you immortal in his presence. And so he has to have a filter. He has to have a means of knowing who he can trust and can't. That's one of the things that is so curious about collecting individuals like Elia and Chinook, where God's making a conscious decision. That person, that soul, is somebody that I can work with, that I can trust, that has no allegiance of any kind to religion or politics, and seems to have this can-do attitude and stick-with-ness that is necessary to accomplish these bigger issues. And, how he made that decision initially, or did he cultivate a series of souls that just had that capacity and then deployed them? curious as to which way he went. But you even take the first soul that he gave an Asalma to, Adam, who we now know as Dode. Took a long time before Dode was ready, and it's why I woke up in the middle of the night and I, just struggling with this, is that Dode couldn't have fulfilled Pisac alone.
Right.
Couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And so how was he supported, and what role did Leah and I play in the support as Ruth and Boaz, and delivering him to that point, knowing that much as I love him and enjoy his company, that he doesn't typically do very well on his own. He does great with the right kind of support. But he's God's firstborn. He's still God's favorite. So God's going to give him that kind of support. And if it means that we need to be bludgeoned and bleed on the mercy seat of the Aaron Bereth so that Dode's sacrifice is acceptable, then that's what we do.
Sure.
All right, sir. What else we have? We've talked this one into the ground. Certainly, that is Rahab. By the way, he is Satan incarnate, so it's important to know that sort of thing. And this you can play just a bit of it. It's a bunch of numbskulls walking around with face masks, and these are neo-Nazi kinds of belligerents. They would consider themselves patriots. They'd be the Proud Boys. They would be MAGA type supporters doing it. And it's just amazing the number of people that think that they're really cool to walk around with ski masks on their faces. You see it among the Muslims when they're in parades. Palestine will be free. You see the Marxists doing it. And you see ICE doing it. I wrote these books dealing with Christianity and with Islam, and I put my name there. And I haven't about the author in the opening page. I'm not hiding from anybody. Here I am. I tell everybody I'm broadcasting from the U.S. Virgin Islands. You want a piece of me? Have at it. See how close you can come. I've had thousands and thousands of death threats, and I've never worn a mask. I've never ducked for cover. I've never had to fire a shot in return. And if you think that you're some kind of special individual and you think you can take me out, you just go try. See how it works out for you. Don't expect to live through it. Flags and masks, baby. Flags and masks. Let's play a little Americana music. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. How welcome do you think Jews are going to be in their America?
Yeah.
How welcome would be a Democrat be in their community?
Right. Well, anybody that isn't them, I mean, period. Right. I mean, not it doesn't have to be someone of a different skin color, a different, a Jew, a different.
Yeah, I didn't notice a whole lot of African Americans marketing that group either. Did you?
Right.
How about Hispanics?
No, I did not.
No. Asians? No, you think they're white supremacists, maybe?
Yeah.
I will tell you that anybody that decides that they're going to make their decisions as to who's right and who's wrong based upon skin pigmentation is an idiot. That is a moron. These boys look pretty butterfly white to me.
Yeah, and it was a program a long time ago that you mentioned that's something that kind of really hit home to me. Anytime you've got to do something with a mask on, you might have to rethink, what you're doing, right? It's like,
You know, I ended my examination of Ruth and Boaz by calling them the naked Navi. Navi means prophet in Hebrew, and they're clearly prophets. And I did so, yes, some tongue in cheek because it's a clever alliteration. And they were clearly naked in the most important scene. But it is the antithesis of this. And it is what Adam and Chawa were before they ran amok. It's what Dode did when Obed-Edom was helping him relocate the Aaron Bereth into Jerusalem. Exposed and comfortable around Yahweh is a glorious thing. And when you develop enough confidence in your relationship with Yahweh, that you can expose yourself unveiled, unmasked, by offering all of your books to everybody for free, and do programs like this, that is liberating. To being exposed in that way and being comfortable. And I would say that one of the things that Boaz and Ruth demonstrate is that their most interesting prophetic narration was when they were naked. So being totally exposed, they were most attuned to what God was going to do with them.
Yeah.
That's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, an interesting lesson. And the exposure, while it was real in Eden, it was real in their case. It was real when Dode was bringing the Aaron Bereth into Jerusalem with the help of Obed-Edom. It is not conveyed in the sense that we ought to do this program bare ass naked.
Right.
It is presented to convey a very important reality, which is that when your relationship is so good with God, when you come to know him so well and understand who he is and what he is offering and what he expects in return, and can speak openly and candidly about him, then you can be exposed to him. You're never worried about tripping up or making a mistake, because you know there'll be plenty of opportunity to get back up or to correct the mistake and actually accomplish something in that process. You know, as I said in the book of Ruth, the best mistake I ever made was attributing maternal characteristics to Yahweh by extrapolating on the feminine nature of Ruach. And had I not made that mistake, Boaz and Ruth would not have come back together in this life to accomplish what is really our most important mission. And so it was a mistake that I was able then to correct, but it was a really useful mistake. Not intentional, but productive. And all of these things are that way. And so when you're comfortable in your own skin, it shows. People know it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such a difference to that, this idea of bearing it all. And I'm not even talking about being naked or nudity. I mean bearing it all, about this idea that I have no secrets to hide. Well, everybody's got something that they would, not like people to know about their past or whatever. But this idea, but I'm still comfortable about those. Just because I have 6 toes on my right foot doesn't mean I go around showing people my 6 toes. Okay, but I still wear sandals. You get what I'm saying? If somebody finds, I'm not worried about my past. I'm not worried about the things that I've done. Because I'm confident in who I am as a person. But today, with the advent of cell phones and this gotcha idea, it really, really makes people want to. Everything you see on social media is a complete facade.
It's a facade. It is. And we have nothing but facades. That's why we decided when we started this program, they would all be live streams. There'd never be an edit. What you see is what you get. Never, ever an edit. It's all live streaming. The reason that there's two reasons really we can have things in our past that don't bother us anymore. One is that when God gives instructions of what you should and should not do, if you're going to develop a relationship with him, it's always in the imperfect. Now, the imperfect speaks of ongoing and habitual behavior. And I was at one point a Twistian. I was at one point a Republican. And I was at one point patriotic. The moment you stop being those things, you are no longer guilty of them. And so what you were, once you stop, doesn't work against you with God. It works for you with God. Let me explain that. God picked two people that came out of Babylon to present the narrative of the covenant. God worked with a fellow who was raised to some extent in Pharaoh's household to free his people from religious and political oppression in Mitzrayim. God chose as his final witness this Nakar, someone who had once been a Twistian and had been political. Because once you realize those things are wrong and you walk away from them, you're vastly better prepared to confront them and oppose them. So the worst part of our past is no longer a problem when we stop being aligned with it, and it actually becomes an asset because we can speak intelligently against those frauds. So that's the beauty of the imperfect conjugation, and also what Yahweh is trying to achieve and the people that he worked with to achieve it. The second part of it that causes complete comfort, even though everybody has aspects of their past that they'd rather not have exposed, is that the whole function of matzah, of Chag Matzah, which is the single most important of the Moed Mikre, particularly with its fulfillment up to this point. It won't be long term. I think Teruah will become more important. But at this point, it's Chag Matzah. Is that with Chag Matzah, everything that we have done that God would view as offensive, like being religious or political or conspiratorial, has been taken away, been deposited in Sheol, never to be seen again. So we are completely innocent of those things, and past, present, and future. So why would you be concerned over something that God no longer sees? And it's a perfect solution so that he can enjoy the best of us, while the worst of what we were is no longer even visible to him. And yet he can capitalize on what we were when opposing things that are horrendous, because he would actually prefer, it gets back to something you said earlier, he would actually prefer to work with someone like Moshe, who knew firsthand that the religious, political, and caste system that was perpetrated by Mitzrayim was evil. It's much easier to work with a person like that has decided against it, that was aware of it and has decided against it, than it is an ignoramus that doesn't even know those things exist or have any understanding of them.
That's right.
And when I tell you that democracy is not a good thing, when an oligarchy is actually superior to a democracy, and that most people just, their fumes come out of their heads, that collectivization God hates, that the larger the institution, the more God is disgusted by it, the worse humans become. People can't process that. But I've seen it. I've been there. I know it. I know this beast. And vastly better than almost anyone ever. And it's easier for God to work with someone like that that despises what he despises, that loves what he loves. And it's one of the things that most people miss is that love requires hate. Unless you know what, when, and how to express righteous indignation, you can't be loving. And so there's only one way to have an appreciation of how to express righteous indignation, and that is to know the things that irritate God in this way. Religion and politics, conspiracy, anti-Semitism would be examples of that. Caste economic systems. And so you need to know them to be opposed to them. And you can't be of shared mindset with Yahweh unless you're opposed to them. You can't be opposed to them unless you know them. So there is advantages to these things. So I'm telling you that there are aspects to your life that you may say, I'm ashamed of, and I don't want people to know it. And I'm telling you that for the most part, those things are actually of value going forward.
Yeah.
Experience, 100%. Absolutely.
You took the words, Kevin, right out of my mouth. Experience, when you transpose that over the thinking, because otherwise everything's an intellectual exercise, and that can only bring you so far. But when you've been in religion and you've been beaten up by it, you saw how bad it was and walked away from it. Well, now you have something that's like gold. That's very valuable that you came to this conclusion. Most people don't come to that conclusion, so it really doesn't matter. But when you come to that conclusion, now it's very valuable.
Yeah, I have a good example would be I speak a lot about overcoming depression and how people should overcome depression. If I hadn't been depressed in my life, it would be difficult to speak to it. Now, both times I was depressed in my life were before I knew Yahweh. Like most young men who was all thumbs when pursuing the pretty. I always wanted to have a relationship with the prettiest girl, and didn't always work out when I was in high school. And I recall depression over a lost, what I thought was love. And it was really, I still remember the hurt of that. And it was hurtful enough that I used it as a positive and said, I think my issue here is that I'm an introvert, and I can resolve this by being an extrovert. And so I literally taught myself to be an extrovert because I didn't like that hurt. And as an extrovert, you're already well on the way to solving depression, because as an extrovert, you find energy around other people. You find people stimulating. You enjoy their being in their company. You enjoy engaging them. And that's the fastest way out of depression. So the very strategy that I used as a young man when I was in pursuit of a young woman that didn't think the same of me. We actually had a wonderful relationship. She had amazing respect for me, but I just couldn't. I didn't prevail as the chosen boyfriend. My solution to that happened to be the ideal solution. Get out of introversion, go into extroversion, start caring about other people, get a sense of energy from being with other people. Now, I can tell you that gets tiring after a while too. And I may, and here in about 7 years, ask for a relook at that, and may try some introversion again, just for some peace, because it's been a lot of exposure. You can see I have been through the mill. Now, the second time was I had put my all into a business. I had funded it out of my own pocket for a long time. I'd written the business plan. I had hired everybody. I'd seen person after person's lives transformed, and we were doing an extraordinary thing, literally doing well by doing good. And it was cutting edge in terms of its technology, delivering an extraordinary benefit to people. And I saw it ripped apart by some very nefarious individuals, tried to stop it, and had a board that worked against me in trying to stop it. And then I found myself on the front cover of a national business periodical, probably the most famous at the time, with a 14-page cover spread, where nothing that it said was true. And I was blamed for the demise of the company that I built, even though there was not a single accusation in the article that was accurate. And I recall having, devoted so much of my life energy to building this thing that was worthwhile. And this is again before I knew Yahweh. And all the people that had been tremendously helped by it and the promise of it, and to see it not only fall, but to be scandalized in a national periodical for having destroyed that which I loved. I remember that the result was depression. It was depressing to watch that, and to see the company that I had loved and had nurtured destroyed, particularly with such promise. I always referred to it. I was a worm on the asphalt road on a hot summer day. You're just so low, you just can't imagine even getting up from that. And I recalled that at that time I had two individuals. One has passed away. One taught me to write. The person that passed away was a fellow named Ken Power. We were very good friends. And the other was a guy that has managed to build our website that has been my friend for 35 years now, 40 years, Joe Page. And they both came over and said, I think we have a solution to this. Let's tell our story. Let's write a book and tell our story. What happened? That story became in the company. And we focused on all the good that we had done, all the interesting people we had met, and we told our story. And we focused on the interesting people and events along the way, and we got out of our own situation, and it was beneficial. But had you not experienced depression and found how it is resolved, what advice could you give to anybody that is depressed? You've had, I think, if I'm correct, you had some bout sometime in your life with alcoholism. And
absolutely. That's choose your bottom is my only advice to people. If you feel, choose your bottom. This is going to be the bottom right here, and it's all up from here. Choose a bottom. And
I've not struggled with a chemical or other kind of addiction, mainly because I made the decision that I didn't want to have to struggle with them, because I'd seen them destroy other people's lives. So it was just easier not to do them than have to struggle to get out of them. But that means that I'm not a very good person to advise people how to get out of them. But we have a young man, for example, on the Covenant who is really doing some wonderful work. It's just a really, really fine young man. In fact, we have two, one with drugs, one with alcohol. And because you have succeeded in recovering from these things and have done so for a prolonged period of time, you are a nurturing, supportive voice because you've been there. And that's part of what we have to realize, that the scars in our past forged our character. They make us who we are. And the very fact that you overcame it means that you're no longer tarnished by it, but yet you have the strength of having overcome it, which makes you exceedingly valuable to the lives of other people.
Yep. An asset.
Well, we try.
Yeah.
I do what I do, and if someone else gets a benefit out of it, fantastic. That's synergy. Once again, I'm not an altruistic person. I'm not out there saving.
Yeah, you also had the exposure of well, it wasn't really the dark web, but you went to places internet-wise where there are a lot of weird stuff going on, and a lot of people are in that and are tarnished by it, whether it's the video games or the social media or the crevices of the internet, where all lies are being promoted. And I'm sure there's some things that are truthful too, but boy, you're going to really have to have a filter to survive there. Yeah. And you see the likes of Tyler Robinson, the wimpy little kid that somehow thought he was doing something good with his. I mean, I can't stand Charlie Kirk, but you don't go and, if you want to refute him with your words, not with a bullet. But we get a lot of that. And we have a lot of those young men around today.
I do a lot of research projects, I call them, in order to be able to relate to people. It's and this is online for sure, but meeting people where they are so that I can understand, their mentality, that sickness, see where it comes from, to be able to avoid those things. Why do people think the way they think? Why do they do those things that they do? To me, it's a complete anathema of that's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of why I wanted us to branch out and to have everybody in the Covenant family make a contribution and expose themselves, because there's people at different levels. And at this point, I am a million miles away from being a gateway into the covenant. I've just gone way too far into my knowledge and understanding and confidence with Yahweh to be the kind of person that you can say, well, let's chat about you coming out of religion or you coming out of politics. I mean, it's
Right.
And so
I wrote a
you
book.
need, and so you need people all along life's way to engage these people, and my job now is to teach the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A different responsibility, and to care for the most important of all, and Dode.
Yeah.
To restore his reputation and facilitate his return and homecoming is our job, and to make it as beneficial as possible. That is our mission, along with teaching the teachers that are going to be engaged in the process going forward. But if everybody was teaching the teachers and supporting Dode, then we wouldn't have anybody to work with the newbies that come along. So we need folks at all different positions and experiences.
Well, and there's also that sense of relatability, like I was kind of speaking to earlier, that people are just uncomfortable that, it's a lot why we don't get comments or questions in chat, or, that what it takes people to actually write an email to you, that, they don't want to feel stupid. They just that an idea of approachability, but yet, you can approach Fun Cats on Facebook, and there is absolutely no, feeling of unapproachability
Judgment
whatsoever with him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And I think that's to a lesser case true with the Asciata feature. I think when people found out that we, when it was being abused, that we have a log of what is asked, and so we're I pay for that access to Claude in this way, and the training that we have done, and paid for the development of that, and don't like very much when people are trying to use it against Yahweh and the role that we have, and so we do have logs of what's asked and answered. And so it's not quite as comfortable, I guess, as going to Matt Funcats on Facebook and saying what do you think.
Right.
But you're right. I'm not. I suffer fools poorly, and if somebody's going to try to make a point, because very few people just ask an open question. They will almost always phrase their question in a statement, and their statement has an agenda. And I don't play that game anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Not my job to play that game anymore. I never was very good at the game originally. I made it very clear when I did all of these programs, I suffer fools poorly. I'm not easily threatened, not easily intimidated. In fact, I would say I'm not intimidated and I'm not threatened. And I don't like religious foolery. So
you can be what was his name, Seminary Scott or whatever, and we can read your entire question and answer on the air, right?
Yeah, remember him? Oh yeah, Moody Jeff and Moody Jeff and Seminary Scott. Yeah, that's they did not do well, and there were people who got mad at me for being so critical.
Yeah, right.
And I said, well, they had their agenda. They were pursuing their agenda. I have mine, and I'm pursuing mine, and let the pieces fall where they may.
Yeah.
All right. What else do we have there? Mr. Pilot. 2 years later. Oh yeah, this is Trump saying that he could solve the Ukrainian war in one day. In fact, I don't even think it would take that long. And I can do this and I can do that. And yeah, you're just a hot air blowhard that. And, you know, we've already gone over what are the lies that Trump parrots, that if you were a rational person, you couldn't be a MAGA. And you can just play 20 seconds of this and you can hear just how arrogant and ignorant the man is.
I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled.
I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours.
I would fix that within 24 hours. And if I win, before I get into the office, I will have that war settled. 100% sure.
He's trying to bring ideas of Reagan, right? That Reagan fixed the Iran hostage situation before he ever got into office. That's exactly.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, and actually, Reagan didn't fix it. He bribed the Iranians. He gave the Iranians missiles. So it was missiles for release. And it was a criminal act at the time to negotiate with terrorists. So he committed a crime. And he negotiated with them. I knew and had personal discussions with the people around him. I know the people who did what he asked them to do. What he did was a crime. Reagan, what he did was a crime.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of Trump here, over and over again, and when we listened to a third of it, over and over again, you repeat the lie. And people believe the lie. But when it turns out to be a lie, people are so dumbfounded by this kind of propagandist rhetoric that they never come to their senses. No. Now, one of the things that about the claims that he's making with Iran and Russia is that he's among the largest contributors to the lie. He was instrumental in this war. And in Trump 45, he contributed mightily to arming Ukraine. And as Trump 47, he has upped the ante and has given Ukraine even more. And the Ukraine is nothing but a blunt instrument, a proxy that is wielded by the United States and Europe to bludgeon Russia. He's fully aware of the regime change operation that failed. It achieved its goal, but it led to war. But I guess that was the intent.
He has stated emphatically, I gave them the javelins. I'm the reason that they, were able to.
Right.
And by just not doing those things, Ukrainians would have been better off. They would have had no idea of hope, and they would have surrendered, and there would be less dead.
There wouldn't have been
right
any
now.
war because the United States wouldn't have egged Ukraine on. There would have been no blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline. There'd been no diminution of Europe benefiting from inexpensive Russian energy, and there'd been no weapons for this war that have killed over 2 million people and have put the world at the precipice of a nuclear holocaust. So he isn't the solution to the war. He's a major contributor to the war, and he's over in Turkey now, condemning NATO in one breath, complaining that NATO didn't help him in his Iran fiasco, and that the NATO doesn't contribute enough, and that he wants out of NATO, but now wants to be the big honcho of NATO. It's dizzying, his positions on NATO. I mean, it's just really dizzying. It's like an upside down tornado that we're witnessing with Trump on NATO, and NATO is destroyed. So I don't even know why we're even talking about it or why he's even talking about it. He made a post the other day where his Ava Braun, a little blonde that kisses his ass and does all of the graphics for his tweets, and he had that the United States contributes $999 billion to NATO a year. Well, the problem was it's million.
We don't spend.
It's million, not billion. And it's just astonishing. But there was a way to end this war immediately, and that is to come clean, to say it was a failed CIA operation. The United States lied about the encroachment of NATO, and that the regime change was a failed project, and that we egged the Ukrainians on to fight this proxy war with Russia because we wanted to break up Russia and have access to their mineral and wealth and natural resources. That's why they war with Iran too. We would just tell the truth. Truth is good. Try it sometime. And say it was a bad idea. We should never do it again. And we're no longer going to fund it. And so we are now in a position where we have done so much damage to Russia and to the ethnic Russians in the east of Ukraine and the south of Ukraine that we're no longer in a position where we can just say to Russia, we're sorry, but please go away.
Yeah.
That time is long over. So we're going to have to make a major concession, like Ukraine will never be part of NATO. There'll be no more NATO exercises ever in Ukraine. We're going to stop arming Ukraine forever. And that the ethnic Russian territories, whether conquered or not in Ukraine, are part of Russia now. That is what you would have to do. And but you'd have to come clean and say, we lied. And the aggressor here was the United States sponsoring the Ukrainians. And if you'd done that, you could have solved this war that has been so damaging to the world and led us to the precipice of nuclear holocaust in a heartbeat. But right now, we're looking down the barrel of a nuclear exchange between Russia and Europe. And because this clown is such a nincompoop between Russia and the United States. And it's not going to be millions of people that are going to die. It's going to be billions.
Yeah.
That's
you
what
had a
we've
post
done.
the other day about the decentralization of Ukraine's war manufacturing. I mean, people having parties soldering drones together in neighborhoods and how that these people, every Ukrainian is involved in the war effort. And I'm like, pick your bottom, people. Just stop. It's not like Russia's coming to conquer you. Russia just wants you to stop killing Russians in the Donbass, letting Nazis kill Russians in the Donbass, and they want to sell you cheap gas. Why are you continuing to fight this? Because everything around you is crumbling.
Yeah, because every time they fight it, you're the disappearing man there. It's really weird with that background there, Will. But yeah, you can see and what I am up against here. This is for real. That's really a bookshelf behind me, and it is really mine. And I'm really sitting at my desk. The Russians cannot lay down and play dead. They could not have allowed NATO to continue to encroach. They could not allow the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline to go unanswered. They could not have responded idly by when the United States perpetrates regime change in Kiev. And then to have that regime change armed by the United States to go torment ethnic Russians in the Donbass region, which is exactly what happened. Russia's not in a position where they can deal with that. Russia has had Nazis on their border, and it cost them 25 million Russians to defend themselves and to maintain independence of Nazi Germany. They're not playing that game again. And you can say whatever you want, but Russia isn't going to go down that path. And now that the Europeans have been aiding and abetting the Ukrainians flying drones and missiles into Russia. Russia either has to defend itself or there will be no Russia. So I know that Putin does not want to destroy Kiev. He doesn't want to conquer anything other than the ethnically Russian areas of Ukraine and he is going to now establish a buffer, which he has now in the north and in the south, and he will also in the east. But he does not want Ukrainians. He wants ethnic Russians to be part of Russia, but he has no interest in Ukrainians. He knows them. They disgust him.
No one does.
Yeah.
No one
They're
wants
the Gazans
them.
of the Christian world.
Yeah. They're like the Fakistinians. Nobody wants them. Israel doesn't want them. Egypt doesn't want them. Jordan doesn't want them. Saudi Arabia doesn't want them. Nobody wants them. And the same thing is true with ethnic Ukrainians. They have a long history, and it's a disgusting history. So he doesn't want to destroy Kiev. He doesn't want to have to go to war with Europe. He wants Europe to be a customer. And yet Europe has given him no choice. The Ukrainians are giving him no choice. And so
and yet the propaganda point
is going to hit the fan
Putin.
soon. Otherwise, Russia will have no credibility left. And you need to understand, in Russia, the guy that is being blamed for all of this is the guy that is the most reluctant to escalate the war. The one that doesn't want to escalate the war is Putin. He wants just to go slow. And this notion that you see now in the Atlantic and the New York Times and other periodicals, the Economist, that Russia is losing is absolutely insane. Russia's gains in the last month have been greater than at either time in this war. And they are taking the territory that they feel they need to take, and they'd rather not have to destroy Kiev and have to deal with the consequence of that. But if there's no choice, then there's no choice.
If you did a man on the street interview, people will tell you that, because they believe propaganda, they will tell you that Putin is a conqueror. He has it's going to be part of a long, steady march into Western Europe, and just none of that is true. But that's what's being sold, and very bright people talk in those terms. And as soon as you go down that road, I don't even really want to talk to you, because you're
which you have to be an ignoramus, because you are not paying attention to the overwhelming evidence that says exactly the opposite. And that you don't even know Russia, where the only issue that Putin has with the Russian people is he's been too slow to respond to maintaining Russian sovereignty and dignity. And so that's his only problem, is he has been too slow, and he is slowly now losing gradually some of his support for having been reluctant to take the next step. And I understand, you hold Europe accountable, and that's going to come with a consequence. But you don't hold them accountable, that comes with even a more tragic consequence. And the same thing is true with Kiev. You either hold them accountable, or you'll pay a vicious, terrible price. And most people now realize that Putin's strategy was a failed one. Putin's strategy was, we will outlast the Merz, the Starmers, and the Macron. And Starmer is gone, and he may have been the dumbest of them. The very fact is that what the UK has put up was no better. And so he thought he would just outlast them, and then there would be some sanity to Europe, and they'd all get along, and they could do business together. That was his hope. Just not going to turn out that way.
Yeah. Things will definitely calm up.
Yes, sir. I have dogs that have just... Go ahead, and we need to get to the next slide here. We're too long on these slides. Just make one comment. If you were trying to chisel Satan's identity in a graphic or stone, that would be it. I have mentioned on this program that I'm unique among people in the world, and that I have traveled through the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union, and all the way to Siberia and back. I even went into Mongolia. I've been all the way through it, accompanied by the KGB. I know the Soviet Union. I've been all through Eastern Europe at the time of the Iron Curtain. And I was the first group of individuals allowed into communist China when Nixon eliminated the moratorium against it. I have seen what communists do. This is exactly how the communists depicted Lenin, Marx, and Engels, and then Stalin. I know what he's trying to do. I know that he is trying to establish the Fourth Reich, and that he has a cadre of people around him, and he has owned Eva Braun and a Joseph Goebbels that are around him. And this is what he's trying to establish, and he is going to be successful at it. Successful not in the extent that he accomplishes something worthwhile, successful in that he destroys the world as a result of it. He hates people. Satan hates people. Trump hates people. Yeah, the old argument, you can win more friends with a drop of honey than you can with vinegar. And this is more vulgar in that it's they fly on shit and the bee pouring out some honey. We are not trying to influence people. I'm not trying to entice someone off that mound of political and religious shit into lapping up honey. I will condemn the mound of shit, and I will proclaim the benefits of the honey. But what you choose to do with it is up to you. And if you are a MAGA or a Marxist or a Muslim or a conspiratorialist and you like your shit, I'd just prefer you stay there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Don't get on my porch. I don't want your poopy paws on my porch.
Yeah, my wife's favorite line: "Get
Keep
off
your
my porch."
poop off my porch. Yeah.
There are so many accounts, and I think there are actually one account that is phone driven. This is an atheist account, and it comes in many different flavors. We took on 2 of the flavors yesterday. Here's a 3rd flavor, and they promote their atheist agenda at various levels. Here they're trying to promote it to the dunderhead. This is being promoted now to the person of no intelligence. The reality here is that this is not a depiction of who was aboard the ark. The 3 sons were adults with wives, and there were no giraffes and monkeys sitting out, and the ark wasn't a tiny little boat of this character. There were no floating giraffes or elephants. In fact, there were no giraffes or elephants, period, because the region that was flooded is strictly Mesopotamia, from the Black Sea down to the mouth of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where humans with an Osama lived. And so none of this like this happened.
Yeah.
And there's no understanding of what happened. Look, there's Uncle Charlie and Aunt Emma. No, the reason that Noach and his family were chosen for this event is because they didn't engage with Aunt Emma or Uncle Charlie. They were completely
Kodesh,
unaffected by the fallen state of Neshama man. And the people God describes, they were Hamas, they were terrorists, they were ruthless, they were religious, they were political. They were so bad that God said, "I regret having created humans." But the animals that were protected on it were for that region. And the The people were not out celebrating it. Their job was to give Nasalma Man another chance. So there is nothing like this fictional take. Now, the other issue that they're just unaware of is that the evidence for what I'm talking about, the regional flood up the Tigris and Euphrates rivers up to the Black Sea, is irrefutable. I mean, you have the Black Sea at exactly this time rising 500 feet and being converted from fresh water to salt water. How did that happen without this kind of an event? You have God describing it as an upwelling of deep sea water, and you have the Burkle impact crater creating a tsunami at that time that was 500 feet in elevation, going right through this area with the sediment visible throughout the region. So there is absolute proof that this happened exactly as Yahweh said it did. So you've the problem is that the atheist wants to combat religious depictions that are fairy tales, as opposed to go to the actual text and understand what it actually says, and then work your way through it. But the proof of it is overwhelming, and it is undeniable, and it happened exactly as God said, where and why and when He said it happened. And on top of all that, I have some personal skin in the game.
Yeah.
In America, we speak English because it's the language of our founding, and for 1,000 years, it has been the language of freedom.
Sure.
All right. The worst imperialist nation, apart from Islam is the worst. But the second worst to Islam is the UK and its imperialistic imposition on countries like India and China and many others. And so it was never the language of freedom. It was the language of oppression, was English. The only language that is more oppressive than English would be Arabic, because of the influence of Islam, where there were 200 million people killed in the first 100 years of the Islamic era. And there are 55 countries still enslaved under Islamic apartheid. But second only to Islam, the UK, Great Britain, was a tyrannical, oppressive, apartheid, colonialist power. And it was the language of subjugation, not freedom. So it's something to keep in mind when somebody says something that's stupid. By the way, the English that we speak today, as opposed to Anglo-Saxon, is only about 500 years old. So you got that part wrong too. But that's a rounding area by comparison to the overall belligerence of your historical ignorance. Yeah, speaking of ignorance, you look at those Twin Towers and you realized what Muslims screaming Allahu Akbar did just 25 years ago. And then you have young New Yorkers, Marxists, elect a Muslim mayor, and who is an anti-Semite. And you wonder, how is that even remotely possible? You can bomb those two buildings with the Islamic suicide bombers screaming Allahu Akbar, confessing to the crime. And within 25 years, you could have an Islamic Marxist mayor whose career advancement up to that point did not even include, would you like fries with that burger?
It is an example of effective propaganda, because they blame the Jews. They blame the United States. You know, they blame anybody else but the actual perpetrators. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I must have done 5,000 interviews telling people that this was an Islamic suicide bombing, pure and simple. Everybody wanted to have pushback. No, they corrupted their religion. No, they didn't. They were living their religion exactly as is written in the Quran and Hadith, and as Muhammad lived to the religion. They were the best Muslims, not the worst Muslims, and that's an irrefutable fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my, yeah. You see, this was the test flight of Air Force One. It can't be called Air Force One when the POTUS, satanic POTUS, is not on it. But these are the people that got the free ride on what is we would consider as Air Force One. This is the Qatari jet that was the gift. Yeah, and the tall blonde in the pink dress, that's Ava Braun. For those that don't know, there she is. That's Ava Braun. The woman next to it is KKK Barbie. She is one of the most disgusted, foul-mouthed propagandists in the world today. And if you go back up at the picture above it, the fellow that's standing next to KKK Barbie, that's Stephen Miller. He is Goebbels. So those are three of the most despicable people on planet Earth. And they are riding around in the dumpster's toy plane. Ava Braun, KKK Barbie, and Goebbels. Welcome to America.
Right. The Qatari Graftmobile.
Yeah. Man, all that woman does, then those two women, all they do is promote propaganda. They are purely, in fact, all three of them. Mm-hmm. They're purely propagandists. That's all. That's their entire job.
Yep.
Is to be propagandists on the taxpayer buck for Satan. Good job. I've shown this picture before. He's the president of Iran's parliament so he was the signature on the other side. It was total surrender. And Trump, after having failed and having to have to surrender to Iran, has now broken his promise. So what do you do now? And Iran, you can see him holding this up. Okay, so I've got Donald Trump's signature on a 14-point memorandum that says America surrendered, and we get all of these things, including continued control over the straits, and what, we can do whatever we want to in terms of our nuclear program, except we can't go make or buy a bomb. But otherwise, we can do whatever we want to do. And America owes us not only $350 billion, but also removing all sanctions and acknowledging that the control of the Strait of Hormuz stays with Iran. And that checkmated Israel in the process and said that Israel can't engage in any war against anyone in Lebanon, Gaza, or Yemen, or Iran. So it checkmated Israel. And yet they knew that Trump wouldn't honor it. That's why the expression on his face is, okay, here it is. And he took a picture of all 4 pages of it. And here it is, or 3 pages, whatever it was. We've gone through each of the points. And we've gone through each of the point, actually blowing up the ones that was signed by Donald Trump just to make certain that we had it correct. Total capitulation by the United States. It was a surrender document. And yet he won't even honor the terms of his own surrender. Mm-hmm. This is scum.
Yeah.
And Iran knew it. They, what they're chanting in the streets now is that MOU is worthless. Trump's promise, his commitment, his word, meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
America, no one trusts you anymore. You're a lying scumbag. You have a broken military. Your CIA is disingenuous. Your president is Satan. your economy is in tatters.
Mm-hmm.
You've destroyed yourself, and you're about ready to take the world down.
Yeah, that's what China and Russia are trying to avoid. Is
Correct. They want to
a slower.
They want to avoid United States and Europe crashing economically, because they have built their economies to do business with the world, and with the complete destruction of the European and American economies, it's catastrophic for them too. So they realize that's what's going to happen, but they would prefer that it happen over 10 years worth as opposed to over the next 2 to 3 years. And I don't think there's any avoiding it happening over the next 2 to 3 years. So the whole world's going to end up in anarchy economically, because even though China is independent of the United States and could survive the United States, the fall of the United States, if you combine the fall of the United States, the fall of the EU, that's a lot to absorb, and for the rest of the world to step up and have a viable economy around these two anchors. So they're trying to actually prolong our demise as opposed to aiding and abetting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, I'll be here in 2028 and even in 2032 too. The first part of that is true. Trump is going to still be there in 2028, and I can't tell you if he's going to declare martial law and there will be no elections, or the Save America Act will be imposed and the elections won't matter, or he will impose martial law and actually have the U.S. military, which is already threatened. Plus, he has 2 private militaries now that he will use them, and he will use world war that he's engaged in and economic collapse to avoid leaving the White House in 2028.
Yeah.
But he will not be there in 2032. The prophets have spoken. He arrives in Jerusalem to present himself as the leader of the world in January 29th of 2030. So they're off. He's off a couple of years in this regard. He's going to make all sorts of bogus claims on the Ides of March in 2030. And then the witnesses arrive and say, yeah, you can believe me if you want, but here's the consequence. There's actually a rumor now that the United States recognizes that they can't reestablish their bases in the Arab fiefdoms, and that they're no longer welcome there, and that they will have their military base for the Middle East in the Negev desert of Israel.
Saw that, yeah.
And if that's true, then Israel, you are even more screwed than you thought you were previously. And if you think that the presence of an American base in Israel is comfort, then you should see how well those American bases work for the Kuwaitis and the United Arab Emirates, and for the Saudi Arabians and the Qataris and the like. And you just assess how well they were. That America decided they would go to war, and they decided they would abandon those bases, and they took everything that was of value in those bases and left the people high and dry. So if you think that America can be trusted, well, I can tell you what the prophets, I think it's in Yeshaya, in his second mention of Rahab, and he just says, my people, they're going to listen to and believe Rahab, and then when it comes to Rahab doing what he promised, he's going to do squat.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. South Korean speed bump.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're building in the Negev.
Again.
Yes. Yeah, devastating for Israel. I'm sorry for you. You got played. You're a vassal. We'll do one more here, and I don't know why we have so many comments. Well, that's luminary. So that brings us down to our last show. So that's a good time for us to to quit. And what happens, of course, is many of these things I would have commented on an image that the people have a tendency to remove when you rebuff them. And so the same thing true is also on Facebook, that put an image in your feed and you respond and say this is not true for the following reasons. They'll preclude that image being in your file because they don't like people poking holes in their balloon. But we, as you have found, we can go back to Facebook now. We have that ability to do so. My hope is that that moving forward, that I do more clipping of news articles and less featuring from the stream. At this point, in my view, there was too much on the dumpster. But the reason it's important is he is the most prophetically described character of our time, with the exception of Yada as the Chodr and the Nakar in opposition to him. And Dode upon his return. But this is a fellow that gets lots of ink. He is Rahab. He is the great betrayer of Israel. And so God has a lot to say about him, and it is all bad. But America, world, you're looking at Satan incarnate. That is who that is. And he's going to do disastrous things to the world. He's got 7 years to get her done. And you need to know what you're up against. All right, I'm going to go back to my examination of how Ruth leads through the declaration of the Chodr, who is the bull who is responsible for there being children in the crib and manger of the covenant family, and then how that is manifest through Yeshayah, as he describes this woman who gives birth to Emmanuel. And then examine how Dode shares what occurred on the fulfillment of Pesach and Matzah in the 22nd and in the 88th Mizmor, the Psalms, to try to paint the picture of how we collaborated in these events together. It does not going to make any attempt to explain what happens on Teruah, because I think we've already done that and overwhelmingly, but it will help provide some closure on the role that Boaz and Ruth play in the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. And the reason it's important is that there's only one name on Yahweh's home, the temple. There's one title and one name. And the name isn't even Yahweh's name. It's Boaz's name. So what did Boaz do that earned that man such respect with Yahweh that he put his name on his temple? But he did. And so it's important that we have an understanding of what it was that caused that. And I cannot imagine that God's going to rebuild it without the man's name back on the column in the portico. And he may change the title on the south column from Ken speaking of representing Dode to Dode's name. But, the entrance to God's home, you pass through and the name and title of Boaz and Dode. And so there's a reason for that. There's a reason why they are the most acclaimed individuals in God's story. It's a reason why God began his whole account by saying there's two fellows, the greater and lesser luminaries, and they're going to fulfill the Moedim. So that's what we're going to pursue. I'd love to be able to finish my edits of these of Coming Home 4 and 5, and I've got edits from the team and adding some superscripts to them. I'd love to get that done, but I just I'll never sleep again until I resolve what I perceived last night. and in terms of what actually happened there. So that's the plan for the rest of my day. So thank you, Will. It's always great to have you as part of this. Sorry we had so much on Rahab, but
No, that's fine.
we actually were mostly talking around him, things like how propaganda works and how it permeates our lives and what are some of the great lies. And
I learned
why
a lot
people
during that
mask
section. That
themselves
was a
and
great section.
how you overcome challenges in life, why even the things that we've done in our past that aren't as stellar as other things are actually have value to us. So we covered a lot of territory that was quite useful, and you're just using that as the prompt. And that's really the purpose of the show, is to find a prompt that causes us to talk about things that are important in people's lives.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we talked a lot about what the present state is in Iran and in Ukraine, because those are still the flashpoints for World War III.
Yeah.
And not only is Ukraine unresolved, the prophets have said that it's the Ukrainians, they're going to send 3 to 4 million mujahideen into Israel and over the next 7 years, and the devastation they're going to wreak in Israel. And in the Torah itself and Devarim, in conjunction with the Nakar being opposed to it, that the elements are going to melt with intense heat. There's going to be a nuclear holocaust. So it's important to know that that's most likely because of the malfeasance associated with the blunders in Ukraine, pursuant to Russia and the United States.
Yeah.
So things to know about tomorrow and how they're going to materialize. So thank you for participating. It's always great to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Yada. Good being with you guys.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.